Hey everybody, Steve here at the Illinois Recording Studio. Okay, got some fun stuff with us here. A little bit of a backstory. I had taken in a very, very fine collection of Gretsch snare drums from the 50s. And I had a 4x14, 5.5, and a 6.5 in each of 5 different sparkles. So we had silver sparkle, green sparkle, red sparkle, blue sparkle, gold sparkle. And we sold a bunch of those. And I have now, the last 3 that I have available are the 4x14s. And so I want to give you a little examination of all of these 3, a little explanation about what they're about, and then we will link this video into each one of the reverb listings for each one of these drums. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on the individual drums in terms of what they are, and you'll see that and more pictures on the reverb listing. But I'm just going to give you a little example of the sound on each of these and a little backstory. Now, Gretsch did the 4x14 snare drums originally as the Max Roach model in the early 50s. That later moved on and became known as the Progressive Jazz 4x14. The snare strainer on these Progressive Jazz was the microsensitive strainer, which you see right here and right here. And that strainer has been a little bit tricky on the 4-inch drums. It is, they tend to be a little boxy. So when you get a good sounding 4, that's a big plus. These are very, very rare. They're the rarest of the 3 sizes, and they can be a wonderful sounding drum if you get the right one. Now, there's one other thing associated with this that has to be considered, and that is because this microsensitive strainer was designed for a shell that was either 5.5 or 6.5 deep, it doesn't work as well as it should on a 4-inch shell. In many cases, what happens is the snares would not fully release. And when you think about microsensitive strainer, the concept behind this was as follows. On this side, to the right of the player, this knob was for making the macro adjustments on the wires. The knob over here on the strainer was designed to use it for micro adjustments. And what happens a lot of times is people just see the strainer arm and they start cranking this all the way up 9 ways to Sunday, and it gets out of whack. So macro adjustments are made from here, micro adjustments from here. So it's still a little bit of a tricky strainer, especially when you want to disengage it, trying to get those snares to totally release. So that's been the issue with that strainer. In addition, this strainer has some tricky little parts in there that wear over time. So with each of these 3 drums, you'll get the original strainer, which works fine on both of these, but we will, and this particular one I'll tell you about, we will also include one of the new Gretsch microsensitive reproduction strainers with each of these 3 drums. So what I would recommend, you take the old one off, put the reproduction on, save the old one if you ever decide you want to sell the drum. Now this particular one right here, the Blue Sparkle, nice drum, sounds great, but this strainer is in need of being replaced. So what's happening right now is that it won't engage correctly. It won't stick and engage on the snare side. But even with that, you can tune this drum and get it to sound great, even with it being in the off position. Example. Now, next one here, Gold Sparkle, my favorite color. This strainer will release the wires, so that's great. Strainer engages the wires. I got it a little looser. We can tighten it up a little bit here. You can play around with these to adjust the sound different ways. More. So there's a number of different ways you can adjust the sound here. This one works well. It's nice. Example, beautiful Gold Sparkle. This one, Red Sparkle. Now, strainer. Fully releases, everything's good. Fully engages. Now, these 2 have the original 12-strand Gretsch Responso snare wires on them. Of course, you can put whatever you want on there, put 16-strand, 20-strand, whatever you feel works best for you. This one has a 16-strand Responso wire on it. so it's got a little bit more. But you know, you go and do whatever you feel like doing. Generally, I like to use 16 or 18 strand wires rather than 12 strand, 10 strand, 12 strand. Just get a little bit more variety out of the snare sound. But what you see, all three of these, very rare. They sound great. This one, as I mentioned, they're all going to have replacement strainers, repro strainers with them anyway, but this one you want to put it on right away because that's not going to disengage. So if you want to get behind a singer or vocalist, you don't want the snare wires, you're going to have a problem with that one. So you want to switch it out. So lastly, I'll do a little playing across these and you can check them out on our Reverb store. Okay, there'll be a separate listing. There is for each one of these. This video will be loaded into that. See all the pictures and also pictures of the interiors and everything else. Okay, here we go.